Hi, just because a lender tells you are approved to buy a home, you should run out there and do it right away. I'm going to today talk about 3 different lies that are told to today's buyers by lenders that you should be aware of when you're thinking about purchasing, especially if it's your first home. Lie number 1 is you're all approved, you're all pre-approved, you're ready to go. Being pre-approved is simply a matter of doing a math formula on our part. We're going to find out how much money you make, we're going to figure out what your debts are, we're going to figure out how much money you have to work with, and then we're going to kind of back into what does that look like as far as a monthly payment that you qualify for, and then based on that payment, based on that down payment, look at what does that equate to in terms of a sales price. Then you're going to be pre-approved, if you will, for that amount. Being ready, however, is a lifestyle change. It's a lifestyle decision, I should say. So being ready and being approved are sometimes 2 different things. There's many times I'll have clients that think they are ready to go. We'll go through the process, get them all pre-approved. They'll look at a few homes and get a little nervous, get a little scared off, and decide to put it on hold for 3 months or 6 months. That's perfectly fine, because again, you need to be ready to go. This is going to definitely impact you from a go-forward basis when you are looking at buying a home. Line number 2, you should maximize what you qualify for and buy at that maximum price. Again, we're going to simply take what you make, what your debts are, take that into account and say this is what you qualify for. What that qualification doesn't take into account, however, is, let's say for example you have childcare expenses. That's not even something that's factored in the qualifications. Or maybe you have older kids and they're involved in soccer or baseball or hockey or something like that. All of those things have expenses that don't get taken into consideration when we're qualifying you. Maybe you like to travel, and again, that's certainly not taken into account when we are qualifying you. So when we're looking at what we're qualifying you for, we're looking at your gross monthly income and what your debts are, things like that. We're not taking those other things into account. And that's where we need to have an additional conversation with you to see where's your comfort levels, because again, there are some additional expenses that may or may not go into the overall qualification. And then the last lie is that the payment is the only thing that matters. Well, that's partially true. I mean, yes, it is true that the monthly payment is something that we want to make sure you're very comfortable with, but at the same token, there are other things that go into account. There are additional expenditures that you're going to have when you own a home that you don't have necessarily when you're renting. And so we want to kind of take those into account. We also want to take into account what you're comfortable with. I have some clients I'm working with right now, for example, that they are very adamant that even though they qualify for maybe $2,300 or $2,400 a month, they really don't want their payment to exceed about $1,700. Now, fortunately, they have some money that they can put down towards this and help to get them into that right price home. But as they're out looking and as they come across a home that they like, and they ask me to work up some numbers, I work up the numbers all based on keeping that payment where they're comfortable. So in other words, I approach it and say, okay, hey, yeah, you can buy this house, but you're going to need to put a little bit extra down, or we may need to get some seller concessions to cover some of your cost in order to keep your cash to close where it needs to be, and also keep your monthly payment where you're comfortable. So basically what I'm trying to say here is it's really important that you work with a lender that takes those kinds of things into account, that they're not just looking at what you qualify for, maxing you out and sending you out there. What we want to do is sit down with you, make sure you understand what all is involved, where you're comfortable in terms of a monthly payment. I've said for years, oftentimes what happens is clients are comfortable at a certain payment level. They have a max qualifying over here, and usually it's somewhere in between that they end up. And that's because what they ultimately end up deciding is, okay, I'll push my comfort ever so slightly because this is something that we really want, and we'll make some lifestyle changes to make it happen. That's really the bottom line here. I'm here to look out for you, help you that way, make sure you're comfortable when you're getting into something, and not just pushing you into the maximum price of home that you can afford. I'm sorry, that you qualify for. Not necessarily that you can afford, but what you qualify for. All right, well listen, I hope you found this information helpful. If you did, please do me a favor, subscribe to our page here. We would really appreciate that. If you know of anyone who is thinking about buying a home and you think this information would be helpful for them, please feel free to forward them this video. I would greatly appreciate that as well. Listen, you have a great day. We'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.